can feel it in my bones. Come on, people. Great rising, sorry y'all. Had a delivery. Bring on the tubers. I'm gonna keep on keeping on. So I'm gonna stand up, tell my people with me. Together we are growing to a brand new home, far across the river. Do you hear freedom calling, calling us to answer? I'm gonna keep on keeping on. Alright, y'all, we live. I can feel it in my bones. Alright, y'all. Okay, I'm testing this over here. Making sure the channel work. Okay, I can see my. Okay, there we go. It's working. I had to check a couple. I'm gonna be checking it for a couple days just to make sure it's working because of the other day. All right, TT, that's Wabu. Hey girl, hey Shayla, great rising. That's Wabu, Trina. Grand awakening, Auntie, peace and blessings. Aliyah, Tiffany, Sawubona, Yah. Let's go ahead and pull this up. Demi, shalom, shalom. I can feel it in my bones. Tiffany, I love that song. She be getting me hyped. I'm like, yes, let's lead a revolution. And you just might lead a revolution. One of which the likes has not seen in a very, very long time on this earth. Shalom, shalom, Mom. All right, beautiful people, happy Thursday. It is day 134 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets, another 3-year consecutive day count, day 803. Today we are reading 2 Kings, chapter 9, 10, and 11. Then we're going to hop on over to the legends of the Jews, or the legends of the Hebrews. And we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday on page 496. So let's go ahead and do the Shema here. The Shema is found in Deuteronomy chapter 6. And we start at verse 3. Remember, read the full chapter for the full context of everything. We did not take it out of context. We just pulled the meat of it out. But what I did leave out is some of the other things that Yahuwah said you will experience when you keep his laws, his statutes, and commands. And it's all good. So Go read it. You want to make sure you're keeping it all, right? We are marked by these things that Yahuwah tells us to do to keep, right? A lot of people talk about the mark of the beast and taking the mark of the beast and stuff. You know what? Okay, it's good that you know that. But what I think is really pertinent that we know is how we're marked and sealed by Yah, right? That should be all that we are concerned with. Yahuwah seal. Everything else, it'll fall away around us and we'll be protected, all right? All right. The Shema. Hear, therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah, the God of our fathers, has promised us, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear. Listen up, people. Listen up. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, our God, He is one God. And you shall love Yahuwah your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them upon the posts of your house and on your gates. And Yahuwah commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yahuwah our God for our good always, that He might preserve us alive as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness. And it shall be our righteousness. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Yahuwah our God, as He has commanded us, right? Okay, just so we know. So remember, Yahuwah constantly repeats Himself. He said that His commands are like a seal upon our head and our foreheads, right? And learn about in the mark of the beast, where you're going to be marked either in your head or in your hand. Yahuwah says the same thing. And He said His commands, us being obedient and keeping His commands, marks His people, right? So you know where it talks about in Matthew, I want to say it's Matthew chapter 24, the great I want to call it the Great Tribulation chapter, right? That everybody teaches about, and the Antichrist and all this stuff, and the end of the world. It's like the end of the world chapters, right? It talks about how let not your flight be on the Sabbath or in the winter. Well, first of all, Yahuwah's people know that on the Sabbath, what does He tell His people to do, right? See, if you was keeping His commands, you would understand, oh, well, that won't catch us. Because why? We know Yahuwah says on the Sabbath, stay in your place. So what does it tell us? Someday soon, and things that are happening, it'll happen on the Sabbath. First, we need to be aware when the Sabbath is, right? So those are Yahuwah's people that's keeping His commands. We track and we keep, right? We do as He say, because those are like hidden messages in plain sight from Yahuwah that will keep us safe down the road. It's telling us that, hey, don't let your flight be in the winter or on the Sabbath. Well, you might be wanting to keep watch, because possibly in the winter on the Sabbath someday, something going to pop off. But if you have kept Yahuwah's command to keep your butt in your place, you don't have to worry about being in that place where that destruction happens, right? Okay, I just wanted to say that. So I know people, they like to put out information. There's nothing wrong with that. We can be aware of what's going on in current times and everything. But sometimes I think we get really engrossed in that and what the world is doing. That we should be. Hear what I'm saying? We should be kept up on current events. Just make sure we know what's going on, and we're watchful, right? We're watchmen. We're keeping an eye out. But our first command is to keep Yahuwah's commands, right? And when we do that, we can, people who are running around afraid, we can be a strong tower, a pillar and a post for them, right? We should stand our post on guard at all times, and we can call out to them where they need to get to safety, right? here is safety, right? Yahuah has a safety point there. If you're close to there, get to that point. You'll run to the city of refuge over here. Get to that point, right? So our job as watchmen is to repeat the commands that we hear from our commander, right? This is what you should be doing, right? You want to avoid coming destruction, whatever that may look like in your life, or wherever region you are on this earth, then you should possibly line up with what the creator of heaven and earth has said, right? And if those who are here on earth or who has transversed the earth in earlier generations, if what they have said does not line up with what he has said, I would not listen to those words, right? Let's go with the last commands that have come from Yah. We keep those, right? If anybody, I don't care who they are, they can label them the Son of God for all I care. If what he's saying, this Son of God, is not lining up with what Yahuah himself has said, we are not taking that advice. I know some people may call that blasphemy, okay, but let's go back to the authority. Who's the authority? Who did this Son of God say he got his authority from? So why is his words not lining up with the authority giver? Yep, we're not listening to you. We're going with what the authority giver has said. That will always be our base balancing point, right? If we really don't know, we need to go back to basics. Who's the authority? Let's find out what the authority said. Forget what you just said, because it sounds a little suspect. It sound good and it tickle my ears, but we need to check you, right? So we always go with what Yahuah has said. Uncle JB, shalom. Uncle Nathaniel, greetings. Nikki, good day. Hey girl, hey Josiah, shalom, brother. Aliyah said, hey sis, have you read this book called The Stories of the Prophets? I haven't heard of it. It went into great depth on what really went down in the Shemayim and on the earth. Well, Shemayim, if y'all don't know what Shemayim is the heavens, right? And on the earth or Eretz, before mankind comes into existence and why the Most High created us. No, I haven't. I found out that none of the righteous Malakis never disobeyed the Most High. It was Eve, the wicked one, that disregarded the Most High law by seeing Adam. That would replace the jinn from earth. No, I haven't. If you got a link to it, send it to me. It sounds kind of interesting. I would like to look into it. Okay. All right, y'all. So let's go ahead and start with the reading for today. 2 Kings chapter 9. Jehu anointed the king of Israel. Meanwhile, Elisha the prophet had summoned a member of the group of prophets. Get ready to travel, he told him, and take his flask of olive oil with you. Go to Ramoth Gilead and find Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, son of Nimshi. Call him into a private room away from his friends and pour the oil over his head. Say to him, this is what Yahuah says, I anoint you to be the king over Israel. Then open the door and run for your life. So the young prophet did what he was told and went to Ramoth Gilead. When he arrived there, he found Jehu sitting around with the other army officers. I have a message for you, commander, he said. For which one of us? Jehu asked. For you, commander, he replied. So Jehu left the others and went into the house. The young prophet poured the oil over Jehu's head and said, this is what Yahuah, the God of Israel, says. I anoint you king over Yahuah's people Israel. You are to destroy the family of Ahab, your master. In this way, I will avenge the murder of my prophets and all Yahuah's servants who were killed by Jezebel. The entire family of Ahab must be wiped out. I will destroy every one of his male descendants, slave and free alike, anywhere in Israel. I will destroy the family of Ahab as I destroyed the families of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and Baasha, son of Ahijah. Dogs will eat Ahab's wife Jezebel at the plot of land in Jezreel, and no one will bury her. Then the young prophet opened the door and ran. Jehu went back to his fellow officers, and one of them asked, what did that madman want? Is everything all right? You know how a man like that babbles on, Jehu replied. You're hiding something, they said. Tell us. So Jehu told them, he said to me, this is what Yahuah says. I have anointed you to be king over Israel. Then they quickly spread out their cloaks on the bare steps and blew the ram's horn, shouting, Jehu is king. So Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, son of Nimshi, led a conspiracy against King Joram. Now Joram had been with the army at Ramoth Gilead, defending Israel against the forces of King Hazael of Aram. But King Joram was wounded in flight and returned to Jezreel to recover from his wounds. So Jehu told the men with him, "If you want me to be king, don't let anyone leave town and go to Jezreel to report what we have done." Then Jehu got into a chariot and rode to Jezreel to find King Joram, who was lying there wounded. King Ahaziah of Judah was there too, for he had gone to visit him. The watchman on the tower of Jezreel saw Jehu and his company approaching. So he shouted to Joram, "I see a company of troops coming. Send out a rider to ask if they are coming in peace." King Joram ordered. So a horseman went out to meet Jehu and said, "The king wants to know if you are coming in peace." Jehu replied, "What do you know about peace? Fall in behind me." The watchman called out to the king, "The messenger has met them, but he's not returning." So the king sent out a second horseman. He rode up to them and said, "The king wants to know if you come in peace." Again Jehu answered, "What do you know about peace? Fall in behind me." The watchman exclaimed, "The messenger has met them, but he isn't returning either. It must be Jehu, son of Nimshi, for he is driving like a madman." "Quick, get my chariot ready," King Joram commanded. Then King Joram of Israel and King Ahaziah of Judah rode out in their chariots to meet Jehu. They met him at the plot of land that had belonged to Naboth of Jezreel. King Joram demanded, "Do you come in peace, Jehu?" Jehu replied, "How can there be peace as long as the idolatry and witchcraft of your mother Jezebel are all around us?" Then King Joram turned the horses around and fled, shouting to King Ahaziah, "Treason, Ahaziah!" But Jehu drew his bow and shot Joram between the shoulders, and the arrow pierced his heart, and he sank down dead in his chariot. Jehu said to Bidkar, his officer, "Throw him into the plot of land that belonged to Naboth of Jezreel. Do you remember when you and I were riding along behind his father Ahab? Yahuah pronounced this message against him. I solemnly swear that I will repay him here on this plot of land, says Yahuah, for the murderer of Naboth and his sons that I saw yesterday. Throw him out on Naboth's property, just as Yahuah said." When King Ahaziah of Judah saw what was happening, he fled along the road to Beth Hagan. Jehu rode after him, shouting, "Shoot him too." So they shot Ahaziah in a chariot at the ascent of Gur, near Iblim. He was able to go on as far as Megiddo, but he died there. His servants took him by chariot to Jerusalem, where they buried him with his ancestors in the city of David. Ahaziah had become king over Judah in the 11th year of the reign of Joram, son of Ahab. The death of Jezebel. When Jezebel, the queen mother, heard that Jehu had come to Jezreel, she painted her eyelids and fixed her hair and sat at a window. When Jehu entered the gate of the palace, she shouted at him, "Have you come in peace, you murderer? You are just like Zimri, who murdered his master." Jehu looked up and saw her at the window and shouted, "Who is on my side?" And 2 or 3 eunuchs looked out at him. "Throw her down," Jehu yelled. So they threw her out of the window, and her blood splattered against the wall and on the horses. And Jehu trampled her body under his horses' hooves. Then Jehu went into the palace and ate and drank. Afterward he said, "Someone go and bury this cursed woman, for she is the daughter of a king." But when they went out to bury her, they found only her skull and her feet and her hands. When they returned and told Jehu, he stated, "This fulfills the message from which Yahuah spoke, which he spake through his servant Elijah from Tishbe. At the plot of land in Jezreel, dogs will eat Jezebel's body. Her remains will be scattered like dung on the plot of land in Jezreel, so that no one will be able to recognize her." 2 Kings chapter 10. Ahab had 70 sons living in the city of Samaria. So Jehu wrote letters and sent them to Samaria, to the elders and officers of the city, and to the guardians of King Ahab's sons. He said, "The king's sons are with you, and you have at your disposal chariots, horses, a fortified city, and weapons. As soon as you receive this letter, select the best qualified of your master's sons to be your king, and prepared to fight for Ahab's dynasty. But they were paralyzed with fear and said, "We've seen that 2 kings couldn't stand against this man. What can we do?" So the palace and city administrators, together with the elders and the guardians of the king's sons, sent this message to Jehu. "We are your servants, and we will do anything you tell us. We will not make anyone king. Do what you think is best." Jehu responded with a second letter. "If you are on my side and you are going to obey me, bring the heads of your master's sons to me at Jezreel by this time tomorrow." Now the 70 sons of the king were being cared for by the leaders of Samaria, where they had been raised since childhood. When the letter arrived, the leaders killed all 70 of the king's sons. They placed their heads in baskets and presented them to Jehu at Jezreel. Like, they had to make sure they got all of them, right? Can't nobody come back later on for their daddy's records, right? Get all 70 of them. Whew, sheesh. A messenger went to Jehu and said, "They have brought the heads of the king's sons." So Jehu ordered, "Pile them in 2 heaps at the entrance of the city gate and leave them there until morning." In the morning he went out and spoke to the crowd and gathered around them. "You are not to blame," he told them. "I am the one who conspired against my master and killed him. But who killed all of these? You can be sure that the message of Yahuah that was spoken concerning Ahab's family will not fail." Yahuah declared through his servant Elijah that this would happen. Then Jehu killed all who were left of Ahab's relatives living in Jezreel, and all his important officials, his personal friends, and his priests. So Ahab was left without a single survivor. Then Jehu set out for Samaria. Along the way, while he was at Beth-eked of the shepherds, he met some relatives of King Ahaziah of Judah. "Who are you?" he asked them. They replied, "We are relatives of King Ahaziah. We're going to visit the sons of King Ahab and the sons of the queen mother." "Take them alive," Jehu shouted to his men, and they captured all 42 of them and killed them at the wall of Beth-eked. None of them escaped. When Jehu left there, apparently they didn't get the message at all. 70 of the queen mother's sons and Ahab's sons had just met their fate, right? Their heads detached from their bodies. When Jehu left there, he met Jehonadab, son of Rechab, who was coming to meet him. After they greeted each other, Jehu said to him, "Are you as loyal to me as I am to you?" "Yes, I am," Jehonadab replied. "If you are," Jehu said, "then give me your hand." So Jehonadab put his hand out, and Jehu helped him into the chariot. Then Jehu said, "Now come with me and see how devoted I am to Yahuah." So Jehonadab rode along with him. When Jehu arrived in Samaria, he killed everyone who was left there from Ahab's family, just as Yahuah had promised through Elijah. Then Jehu called a meeting of all the people of the city and said to them, "Ahab's worship of Baal was nothing compared to the way I will worship him. Therefore summon all the prophets and worshippers of Baal and call together all his priests. See to it that every one of them comes, for I am going to offer a great sacrifice to Baal. Anyone who fails to come will be put to death." But Jehu's cunning plan was to destroy all the worshippers of Baal. Then Jehu ordered, "Prepare a solemn assembly to worship Baal." So they did. He sent messengers throughout all of Israel, summoning those who worship Baal. They all came. Not a single one remained behind, and they filled the temple of Baal from one end to the other. And Jehu instructed the keeper of the wardrobe, "Be sure that every worshiper of Baal wears one of these robes." So robes were given to them. Then Jehu went into the temple of Baal with Jehonadab, son of Rechab. Jehu said to the worshippers of Baal, "Make sure no one who worships Yahuah is here, only those who worship Baal." So they were all inside the temple to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings. Now Jehu had stationed 80 of his men outside of the building and had warned them, "If you let anyone escape, you will pay for it with your own life." As soon as Jehu had finished sacrificing the burnt offering, he commanded his guards and officers, "Go in and kill all of them. Don't let a single one escape." So they killed them all with their swords, and the guards and officers dragged their bodies outside. Then Jehu's men went into the innermost fortress of the temple of Baal. They dragged out the sacred pillar used in the worship of Baal and burned it. They smashed the sacred pillar and wrecked the temple of Baal, converting it into a public toilet, as it remains to this day. This is what we think about your God and your worship of him. We're going to make this a latrine where everybody comes and piss on, right? Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Whew, okay, I get excited about these type of things. We ain't been able to tear down a sacred pillar of Baal and I don't know how long. And we determined to do it. We determined not to speak their names anymore. Every time we get a chance to piss on it, we're going to piss on it. I'm sorry if that's a little too strong for y'all ears, but that's the way I feel. All this time we've been led astray to worship other gods, causing us in our own ignorance to defile the commands that Yahuwah has given to us. We out for blood like Jehu. In this way, Jehu destroyed every trace of Baal worship from Israel. He did not, however, destroy the golden calves at Bethel and Dan, with which Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had called Israel to sin. Nonetheless, Yahuwah said to Jehu, "You have done well in following my instructions to destroy the family of Ahab. Therefore, your descendants will be kings of Israel down to the 4th generation." But Jehu did not obey the law of Yahuwah, the God of Israel, with all his heart. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam had led Israel to commit. The death of Jehu. At about that time, Yahuwah began to cut down the size of Israel's territory. King Hazael conquered several sections of the country east of the Jordan River, including all of Gilead, Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh. He conquered the area from the town of Aor by the Arnon Gorge to as far north as Gilead and Bashan. The rest of the events in Jehu's reign, everything he did and all his achievements are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jehu died, he was buried in Samaria. Then his son Jehoahaz became the next king. In all, Jehu reigned over Israel from Samaria for 28 years. All right, y'all, last chapter for today, 2 Kings chapter 11. Yes, a toilet. Queen Athaliah rules in Judah. When Athaliah, the mother of King Ahaziah of Judah, learned that her son was dead, she began to destroy the rest of the royal family. But Ahaziah's sister, Jehosheba, the daughter of King Jeroboam, took Ahaziah's infant son, Joash, and stole him away from among the rest of the king's children who were about to be killed. She put Joash and his nurse in a bedroom, and they hid him from Athaliah, so the child was not murdered. Joash remained hidden in the temple of Yahuwah for 6 years, while Athaliah ruled over the land. She was a wicked queen, right? Listen. In the 7th year of Athaliah's reign, Jehoiada, the priest, summoned the commanders, the Karaite mercenaries, and the palace guards to come to the temple of Yahuwah. He made a solemn pact with them and made them swear an oath of loyalty there in Yahuwah's temple, and he showed them the king's son. Jehoiada told them, "This is what you must do. A third of you who are on duty on the Sabbath are to guard the royal palace itself. Another third of you are to stand guard at Sur Gate. The final third must stand behind the palace guard. These 3 groups will all guard the palace. The other 2 units who are off duty on the Sabbath must stand guard for the king at Yahuwah's temple. Form a bodyguard around the king and keep your weapons in hand. Kill anyone who tries to break through. Stay with the king wherever he goes." So we know that this baby was the rightful heir of this throne when the queen mother had taken it over, right? She was pretty powerful. Ain't nobody come up against her for at least 6 years. That's how long the rightful heir was hid in the temple. And clearly, she didn't go there, right? While she was there, if she entered, he was hidden pretty well. So the commanders did everything as Jehoiada, the priest, ordered. The commanders took charge of the men reporting for duty that Sabbath, as well as those who were going off duty. They brought them all to Jehoiada, the priest, and he supplied them with spears and small shields that had once belonged to King David, and they were stored in the temple of Yahuah. The palace guards stationed themselves around the king with their weapons ready. They formed a line from the south side of the temple, around to the north side, and all around the altar. Then Jehoiada brought out Joash, the king's son, placed the crown on his head, and presented him with a copy of Yahuwah's laws. They anointed him and proclaimed him king, and everyone clapped their hands and shouted, "Long live the king." So remember, we know from previous books that whenever Yahuwah sets a king up, which we know that they were in the habit of not doing after a bit of time, the king was actually supposed to write a copy of Yahuwah's laws himself, right? And I think that's something, I don't care if you're king, just the king of your house. I think that's a really good practice, right? Because what it does, it keeps the laws of Yah in the foremost part of our minds, and it causes us to meditate on it daily, right? The kings were to write their own copy. We see that this is a dire situation, right? It had to be done quickly. So the priest actually gave Joash a copy of Yahuwah's laws, right? But say if it was a time of peace and they didn't have to worry about the wicked queen mother, he would have taken the time and written those laws out, because as you write each word, you're pondering on it, right? And after you get done writing your own personal copy, when the king gets done writing his own personal copy, Yahuwah says that he is to keep it on his person at all times. And the copy that he reads out of, that was written with his own hand, he is to meditate in that day and night, right? Kind of got away from that because, as we're scattered, you could just order a copy from Amazon or go to a store. You can go to the dollar store and get a copy of Yahuwah's laws. It's a great convenience, but how many would actually take the time and actually just go through, right? That takes some dedication, right? That takes some determination, right? That takes somebody that really understand the ways of convenience, but they decide they want to take the manual route, just to experience the manual route. May we all, at least one time in our life, choose to take the manual route, right? Because when you know the manual route, you can use conveniences at will. So if you get stuck using conveniences and something go wrong, by you understanding and knowing the manual route, you will know how to fix the problem if something messes up on the convenience side, right? Y'all get that a little bit later. Hopefully you got it right now. Look. Then Jehoiada brought out Joash, the king's son, placed the crown on his head, and presented him with a copy of Yahuwah's laws. They anointed him and proclaimed him king, and everyone clapped their hands and shouted, "Long live the king." When Athaliah heard the noise made by the palace guards and the people, she hurried to Yahuwah's temple to see what was happening. When she arrived, she saw the newly crowned king standing in his place of authority by the pillar, as was the custom at the times of coronation. The commanders and the trumpeters were surrounding him, and the people from all over the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. When Athaliah saw all of this, she tore her clothes in despair and shouted, "Treason! Treason!" Then Jehoiada, the priest, ordered the commanders who were in charge of the troops, take her to the soldiers in front of the temple and kill anyone who tries to rescue her. For the priest had said she must not be killed in the temple of Yahuwah. So they seized her and led her out to the gate where horses enter the palace grounds, and she was killed there. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between Yahuwah and the king and the people that they would be Yahuwah's people. He also made a covenant between the... Okay, I was reading it right. Let me start over. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between Yahuwah and the king and the people that they would be Yahuwah's people. He also made a covenant between the king and the people, and all the people of the land went over to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They demolished the altars and smashed the idols to pieces, and they killed Matan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altars. Jehoiada, the priest, stationed the guards. Excuse me. Jehoiada, the priest, stationed the guards at the temple of Yahuwah. Then the commanders, the Karaite mercenaries, placed the guards, and all the people of the land escorted. Hold on, I'm sorry. Then the commanders, the Karaite mercenaries, the palace guards, and all the people of the land escorted the king from the temple of Yahuah. They went through the gate of the guards and into the palace, and the king took his seat on the royal throne. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was peaceful because Athaliah had been killed at the king's palace. Joash was 7 years old when he became king. All right, y'all. So he was the youngest king. I know we hear a lot of times that Josiah was the youngest king, but he actually took the throne at 8 years old. Joash took it at 7 years. And mind you, the king was surrounded with tutors and the all the wise men and stuff. So he had wisdom surrounding him as he grew, right? So, okay, so let's go ahead and hop over here, y'all, to the Legends of the Jews and pick up where we left off yesterday. What would come to those heathens when the sons and daughters of Yaakov or Jacob get in one accord? Oh my gosh, it would be a revolution overnight. I see similarities. Hold on. I see similar. Oh, that missed the word. I see similarities in the spirit of Simeon, and the Levites will be pouring out soon with all those nonsense. I get what you're saying. Yeah, so I also be thinking about that, how Yahuah talks about in Joel, how, and I think this has been misappropriated. The chapter in Joel where Yahuah says that in those days he will pour out his spirit upon all flesh. If we think about this, right? They teach you, now I could be wrong, but this is my take on it based on what I understand up until this day, right? When Yahuah was speaking, unless he's specifically talking to another nation, he's always talking to his people. And what he's giving, what he's pouring out is upon his people. So although it says that I'm going to pour out my spirit upon all flesh, I believe the all flesh, and then he named it your men servants and maid servants, right? He was talking about Israel. He's pouring out his spirit upon his people, all those upon us who are men servants and maid servants, the old men and the young men, right? You know, so I mean, it possibly could be some of the ones from the other nations who have joined to us. But I really think it's talking about the bloodborne, right? There'll be protection for the other nations who have joined us and taken Yahuwah's name. But I believe, like I said, I could be wrong. I'm not always right? But like I said, based on what I understand, I believe that is just talking about in the last days, at the end of our captivity, as Yahuwah is waking up, he is pouring out his spirit upon his people to wake us up, right? So we can continue to get the attention of our other brothers and sisters, right? So that we can fall back in line with him, so he can do what he promised his friend Abraham that he would do for us and to us, right? So that's what I believe. I believe that it's specifically talking about the blood-born sons and daughters, the descendants of Jacob, right? That are scattered to the four corners of the earth. Mom. Okay. I know how Christianity likes to make everybody inclusive. Mom. And that they're Israel in spirit and stuff. Okay. I mean, I get that. Yes, baby girl.
This is my mouse.
Yes, that's your mouse. Yep.
These boy mouse?
Yes, that's for the boys' laptops. That's their mouse. Can you throw that trash away, please?
Yep.
Okay, y'all. So we're starting on page 496.
And what's this for?
The conspiracy. I believe that one is for Josh. All right. So sit it up there. Don't take it upstairs. Don't take them upstairs. Yeah. Sit them over there on the counter, please. Because they chose their own one.
Can I open mine?
No, not yet. Because I got your laptop put up too. So just sit them all on the counter for a moment. Okay. The conspiracy. Yes, it's for Israel because we're his lots, right? The other nations, they got other mighty ones set over them, right? But Yahuwah said, all the other nations can come to me. Even though you have another angel set over your nation, Israel fell to Yahuwah, right? When they cast lots for the different nations, we fell to Yahuwah, right? And blessed be the most holy that we fell to the God who is Lord over all, right? We fell to the mighty one who is Lord over all, and all the nations are subject unto him, right? Whew, that just makes me smile all over every time I think about it, right? All right, the conspiracy. Once the following conversation, remember we're talking about Esther, a lot of the missing details from the book of Esther. Remember they just kind of, what we see in the Bible, the canonized Bible, is just like literally like the bare bones and the gist of the story in the book of Esther. But you'll find other pieces of this is like they took pieces out, like I said, from the beginning to the end of Esther, and that's what you got right there. But if we read in the book of Jasher and even the pieces here in the Legends of the Jews, which remember this book, the Legends of the Jews, was taken from multiple scrolls from the multiple nations who had the same scrolls, right? Now everything that the guy who kind of pulled all this information together, he didn't add in everything. The only thing that he added in here was what could be confirmed with every other nation who had portions of our scrolls. Remember when we were scattered, our wisdom and our scrolls were scattered too. They took them, they added stuff, they took away stuff, they claimed it as their own when it all belongs to Jacob. And we were stripped of everything, right? So, but now Yahuwah's bringing all of that back. And even though people from other nations, they kind of condensed this stuff, blessed be the most holy, that while we were in captivity and everything was taken away from us, he used people from other nations to kind of put this stuff together for us, kind of bring pieces back together so he could then turn it back over to us, right? And what is missing, Yahuwah will reveal himself to the sons and daughters. And blessed be the most holy for that portion that will only be revealed to us, right? Because there's a set aside part that's only given to the sons and daughters, right? I.e. the proper interpretation of all of this stuff, right? Okay. Rome and the children of Ishmael has all our scrolls. Yes, they do. They got a lot of them. They have a lot of them, right? So I'm praying for traitors. I'm praying for more traitors amongst Rome and our cousins, the Ishmaelites, that will start leaking some of this information back to us. Look, cuz, look. Don't see, you ain't get that from me, but go ahead. I'm gonna turn my head. Look, go get that. Y'all gonna need this. Look, I ain't against y'all. I done heard about all the great feats of our mighty one, which we worship too, right? They done turned us against one another. We fighting here all over, Look, that was my daddy generation. Here, I done read about all this stuff. We inherited lies too. We want to help y'all because we know what's going to happen to those that don't help y'all. So here, cuz, just take that. Look, I was able to get this part. So, go and get that. Look, I got some pictures. I'm going to text to you. Get it. Save it somewhere. Delete it. Delete my number. But here you go. That's what I'm praying for. I'm praying for traitors that hand over some of this information to us, right? Yes. Well, your little sister took all 4 of them. So go find her. When you find her, you'll find what you're looking for. Okay. All right, let me start reading. Where we at? 41 minutes. Okay. Once the following conversation took place between Ahasuerus and Esther, the king asked Esther, "Whose daughter art thou, Esther, and whose son art thou?" Because remember, she's still keeping her history and where she descend from a secret, right? You a traitor to Bella. Look. Now, I ain't a traitor, but that little woman child, the little girl child of ours, she's something else, right? She is something else. She is something else. I ain't put her out there, but told my son the truth. I said, when you find her, you'll find what you're looking for. Go find her. Because I already told her to put them up on the counter. She taking everybody's mouth. She acting like she gonna hand out everything. Oh, so you sure that one yours? Into my Isaiah. Okay. All right, let me read. Watch out, boo. he want to shake off his mouse. They so hard on their laptop mice. I just ordered them some, and I thought that was wireless. I guess I didn't read it close enough. Okay, well, it lights up. Go ahead. But that's the one you picked out though. But I thought it was wireless. Okay, y'all. No, you and I go try it on mine. Go find your laptop, which you left it over there on the bar. Okay, don't start mess with all that, Tootie, because I got your laptop put up, so you need to wait a minute. Okay, once the following conversation took place between Ahasuerus and Esther, guys, go upstairs with that. The king asked Esther, "Whose daughter art thou?" Esther, "And whose son art thou?" Ahasuerus, "I am a king and the son of a king." Esther, "And I am a queen, the daughter of kings, a descendant of the royal family of Saul. If thou art indeed a real prince, how couldst thou put Vashti to death?" Ahasuerus, "It was not to gratify my own wish, but at the advice of the great princes of Persia and Media." Esther, "Thy predecessors took no advice from ordinary intelligences. They were guided by prophetical counsel." Because remember, it was actually Daniel. Daniel was alive. Remember Daniel? Had rule over Babylon. He set him up, 3 Hebrew boys. That Daniel. It was Daniel that gave King Ahasuerus this advice, right? Esther, "Thy predecessors took no advice from ordinary intelligences. They were guided by prophetical counsel. Arioch brought Daniel to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and Belshazzar too summoned Daniel before him." Ahasuerus, "Is there aught left of those toothsome morsels? Are there still prophets abroad?" Esther, "Seek and thou wilt find." The result was that Mordecai was given the position at court once occupied by the chamberlains Bigthan and Teresh. Indignant that the place once filled by senators should be given to a barbarian, the ousted officials resolved to... Hey, guys, voices down, please. Hold on. The result was that Mordecai was given the position at court once occupied by the chamberlains Bigthan and Teresh. Indignant that a place once filled by senators should be given to a barbarian, the ousted officials resolved to be revenged upon the king and take his life. Their purpose was to administer poison, which seemed easy of accomplishment, as they were but royal butlers and could find many occasions to drop poison into a cup of water before handing it to the king. The plan, successfully carried out, would have satisfied their vengeful feelings not only as to the king, but as to Mordecai as well. It would have made it appear that the death of Ahasuerus was attributed to the circumstance that he had entrusted his person to the care. Hey, Isaiah, y'all chill. Take it upstairs, please. Bella, hush. Josh, do me a favor. You know what? No, I put it up. You're not even gonna be able to get it. Tootie, I'll get your laptop in a minute.
And this is what it looks like when it's glowing.
Okay, they see it. It would have made it appear that the death of Ahasuerus was attributed to the circumstance that he had entrusted his person to the care of the Hebrew, as his life had been secure under Bigthan and Teresh. They discussed their plans in the presence of Mordecai, acting upon the unwarranted assumption that he would not understand the language they spoke, but the They discussed their plans in the presence of Mordecai, acting upon the unwarranted assumption that he would not understand the language they spoke, the Tarizan, their native tongue. They were ignorant of the fact that Mordecai was a member of the Sanhedrin. So remember, if you're a member of the Sanhedrin or this big group of wise counselors, remember all the Sanhedrin knew all 70 languages as well, right? They were very well, they were really educated men, right? And so in order to talk about all the current events of the world, they had to know all the 70 languages, right? Okay. But they didn't know Mordecai was a member of the Sanhedrin, right? They just thought he was this old ignorant Jew that got lucky. I'm sorry, old ignorant Hebrew that got lucky. And the king appointed him to this position, right? They were ignorant of a lot more than what Mordecai was. They were ignorant of the fact that Mordecai was a member of the Sanhedrin, and as such, knew all the 70 languages of the world. Thus, their own language betrayed them to ruin. However, Mordecai had no need to make use of his great knowledge of languages, as he obtained his information about the plot of the two chamberlains through prophetical channels, right? And that is one of the beautiful things about Yahuwah's people, right? Even though sometimes people think they get the upper hand on us, Yahuwah speaks to us inwardly and lets us know, just like the story I shared with y'all. It was a little fun story with my husband and my son had a little bet about me being in the bathroom. By the time they got home, Yahuwah gives his people inside information, right? And that'll grow over the years as you become more acquainted with Yah and learn how to keep his commands. First of all, knowing what his commandments say and realizing nothing is done away with. Like we really with ease can do them, with the exception of slaughtering the animals. But Yahuwah said the slaughtering of the animals is not even needed if you would just be obedient, right? But somehow we played a bad game of telephone. And people teaching this, they're teaching about the wrong thing. They're putting most of the focus on a sacrifice and how a blood sacrifice is needed to atone for sins. When Yahuwah said that it's absolutely not needed, he said, matter of fact, stop killing my animals. Second, a human sacrifice is abominable to me. He said, I've never asked you to kill your children. Those who worship Molech do that. He said, that is abominable to me. He said, that's just like killing a dog and offering its blood. A righteous person can never die for the sins of the wicked. Yet, that is what is being pushed. And because we have not went back to the authority and what he has said and read it in this proper context, we get taken and our minds are focused on the wrong thing. We worried about the wrong thing. Yahuwah said, I desire obedience, not sacrifice. Obedience, sacrifice. Obedience, sacrifice. Which is easier? Obedience is easier than having to go find a sacrifice, cut up a sacrifice, making sure you following the proper Yahuwah. When he gave the instructions for that, he made it so in-depth and so tedious and pinpointed to only a certain type of people who were ordained by him could actually offer it in order for it to be accepted. That's like, whew, that's exhausting. We just going to do what he told us to do. We're going home. We're going to stay in our place on the Sabbath. That's easier, right? We worried about the wrong thing. We have been taught to worry about the wrong thing. Yahuwah said, this is the way. Walk ye in it, right? Look, however, Mordecai had no need to make use of his great knowledge of languages. He obtained his information about the plot of the two chamberlains through prophetical channels. So even though we are very well learned and we're educated, a lot of times that's just icing on top of the cake. Just like Daniel was a very well educated man, right? He read all the books. It tells us Daniel was wise because he read many, many books, right? But his inside information came through prophetical channels, right? He got the inside information from Yah himself. So it's good that he didn't allow his knowledge of current events and all the things he got inside details on because he read books. It's good that Daniel was humble. He didn't allow that knowledge to puff him up. And when you are full of knowledge and you're humble at the same time and not willing to boast about all that I know and I did this and this and that and nope, this is that, Yahuwah can use you, right? That knowledge is there as a foundation and its knowledge is truth. It's put in its proper place. But Daniel also had the wisdom to know that Yahuwah's insight trumps any knowledge that he could ever obtain, right? However, Mordecai had no need to make use of his great knowledge of languages. He obtained his information about the plot of the two chamberlains through prophetical channels. Accordingly, he appeared one night in the palace. By a miracle, the guards at the gates had not seen him, and he could enter unrestrained. Thus he overheard the conversation between the two conspirators. Mordecai had more than a single reason for preventing the death of Ahasuerus. In the first place, he desired to secure the king's friendship for the Hebrews, and more especially his permission for the rebuilding of the temple. Then he feared if the king were murdered immediately after his rise to a high place in the state, the heathen would assign as the cause of the disaster his connection with the Hebrews, his marriage with Esther, and the appointment of Mordecai to office. Esther's confidence in Mordecai's piety was so great that she unhesitantly gave credence to the message she received from him concerning the mischievous plot hatched against the king. She believed that Yahuah would execute the wishes of Mordecai, albeit Bigthan and Teresh had no plans of the sort attributed to them by their uncle. They would conceive then, now, in order to make Mordecai's words true, that Esther's confidence was justified, appeared at once. The conspirators got wind of their betrayal to the king, and in good time they removed the poison they had already placed in Ahasuerus' cup. But that the lie might not be given to Mordecai, Yahuah caused poison to appear where none had been, and the conspirators were convicted of their crime. The king had the water analyzed, which was given to drink, and it was made manifest that it contained poison. Other evidence besides existed against the two plotters. It was established that both had at the same time busied themselves about the person of the king, though the regulations of the palace assigned definite hours of service to the one different from those assigned to the other. This made it clear that they intended to perpetrate a dark deed in common. The two conspirators sought to escape the legitimate punishment for their dastardly deed by ending their own life, but their intention was frustrated and they were nailed to the cross. Yes.
They hit me in the eye.
He hit you in the eye? Tell him I said keep his hands to himself and he better apologize.
I'm coming up there in a minute.
Dad gonna get him.
She's coming down. Oh, okay, I'm up there in a minute.
And Mom.
Yes. Tootie. Go do what Dad said. Go. But their intention was frustrated and they were nailed to the cross. The conspiracy of Bigthan and Teresh determined the king never again to have two chamberlains guard his person. Henceforth, he would entrust his safety to a single individual, and he appointed Haman to the place. This was an act of ingratitude toward Mordecai, who, as the king's savior, had the most cognate claims upon the post. But Haman possessed... Oh, I didn't know what you about to do. I was moving this. Okay. Hold on. This was an act of ingratitude toward Mordecai, who as the king's savior had the most cognate claims upon the post. But Haman possessed one important advantage. He was the owner of great wealth. With the exception of Korah, he was the richest man that had ever lived, for he had appropriated to himself the treasures of the Judean kings and of the temple. Ahasuerus had an additional reason for distinguishing Haman. He was well aware of Mordecai's ardent desire to see the temple restored, and he instinctively felt he could not deny the wish of the man who had snatched him from untimely death, yet he was not prepared to grant it. To escape from the dilemma, he endeavored to make Haman act as a counterpoise against Mordecai, that what the one built up, the other might pull down. Ahasuerus had long been acquainted with Haman's feelings against the Hebrews. When the quarrel about the rebuilding of the temple broke out between the Hebrews and their heathen adversaries, the sons of Haman denounced the Hebrews before Ahasuerus. The two parties at odds agreed to send each a representative to the king to advocate his case. Mordecai was appointed the Hebrew delegate, and no more rabid Hebrew hater could be found than Haman to plead the cause of the antagonists of the temple builders. As for his chariot, that too King Ahasuerus had occasion to see in its true light, because Haman is but another name for Memucan, the prince who is chargeable in the last resort with the death of Vashti. At the time of the king's wrath against the queen, Memucan was still lowest in the rank among the 7 princes of Persia, yet arrogant as he was the first to speak up when the king put his question about the punishment due to Vashti, an illustration of the popular adage, the common man rushes to the front. Haman's hostility toward Vashti dated from her banquet to which the queen had failed to bid his wife as guest. Oh, he mad because his wife wasn't invited. Look. Hold on. Haman's hostility towards Vashti dated from her banquet to which the queen had failed to bid his wife as guest. Moreover, she had once insulted him by striking him a blow in the face. Besides, Haman calculated if only Vashti's reputation could be brought about, he might succeed in marrying his own daughter to the king. Yeah. Wait, he hit you again?
No.
Oh, okay. But Dad went up. Okay, Dad went back upstairs. He said he was going to get him when he went upstairs. Go remind Dad what he said. Go tell Dad that he upstairs now, and can he please talk to Zay? No, you don't want to go? Okay, well, you're going to have to wait till I'm done, Tootie. Okay. Besides, Haman calculated if only Vashti's reputation could be brought about, he might succeed in marrying his own daughter to the king. He was not the only disappointed man at court. In part, the conspiracy of Bigthan and Teresh was a measure of revenge against Ahasuerus for having made choice of Esther instead of a kinswoman of theirs. Esther, once married to the king, however, Haman made the best of a bad bargain. He tried by every means in his power to win the friendship of the queen. Whether she was a Hebrew or a heathen, he desired to claim kinship with her as a Hebrew woman through the fraternal bond between Esau and Jacob, as a heathen easily enough for all the heathen area. For all the heathen area akin to one another. Okay. Let's see. Where we at? Okay. Let's read this last little section, and then we'll pause. Okay. Mordecai's pride. When Ahasuerus raised Haman to his high office, he at the same time issued the order that all who saw him were to prostrate themselves before him and pay him divine honors, to make it manifest that the homage due to him had an idolatrous character. Haman had the image of an idol fastened to his clothes, so that whoever bowed down before him worshiped an idol at the same time. Oh, you cunning gentleman, right? Look. Haman had the image of an idol fastened to his clothes, so that whoever bowed down before him worshipped an idol at the same time. Mordecai alone of all at court refused to obey the royal order. Oh, okay. Look, that makes sense now. So you know how in the book of Esther, in the regular canonized Bible, Haman was pissed because Mordecai would not bow to him. Mordecai espied that idol he had on his clothes, right? He said, we bow to none other than the creator of heaven and earth, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We only bow to him. And because you have an idol hanging on your garments, I will not bow to you either, right? Because I will indirectly be worshiping a God and not on my watch. I'm not, right? So Haman was pissed about that, right? Look. To make it manifest that the homage due to him had an idolatrous character, Haman had the image of an idol fastened to his clothes, so that whoever bowed down before him worshipped an idol at the same time. Look, they should have canonized this part, right? Because it would make you think about people with clothing now, right? Clothing, you got your superstars and music stars, they wearing clothing with idols on the shirts and stuff, you know. So when they bow into them or they raising their hands, they're indirectly worshiping other gods. Had they actually canonized this, some of our people would have started thinking about that a while ago. Wait a minute, we would be indirectly bowing to another god. So they had to take that part out, right? So we can see the method of their madness and why they canonized what they canonized, right? Look. To make it manifest that the homage due to him had an idolatrous character, Haman had the image of an idol fastened to his clothes, so that whoever bowed down before him worshipped an idol at the same time. Mordecai alone of all at court refused to obey the royal order. The highest officials, even the most exalted judges, showed Haman the reverence bidden by the king. The Hebrews themselves entreated Mordecai not to call forth the fury of Haman and cause the ruin of Israel thereby. Same thing they did with Israel. Like, think about with Moses, when he was bringing them out, when Moses came in, look, Pharaoh, we ain't doing this no more. You would say, let his son go free, that they may go out and worship him, right? And so they're like, look, Moses, look, you making everything harder for us. Just go on and do what Pharaoh says. So, you're making our life harder, right? And so that, look, it's the same thing. You got most of our people, they're too scared to stand up against authority and the power of Yah, trusting that Yah is going to stand with us. So they much rather just fall into the background. The king said bow, let's go ahead and bow. I am not. I'm not, right? And let it be known unto you this day, King, even if Yahuah doesn't rescue me, you best believe I am not bowing to you nor your filthy idol, right? And I would, just for good measure, I would spit on the ground. Just to further piss them off and let them know either Yahuah gonna save me or I'm gonna die today, right? Whew, look. The Jews themselves entreated Mordecai not to call forth the fury of Haman and cause the ruin of Israel thereby. Mordecai, however, remained steadfast. No persuasion could move him to pay to a mortal the tribute due to deity. Whew. Look. Also, the servants of the king who sat at the gate of the royal palace said to Mordecai, wherein art thou better than we, that we should pay reverence to Haman and prostrate ourselves, and thou dost not of all commanded us in the matter? Mordecai answered, saying, O ye fools without understanding, hear ye my words, and make meet reply thereunto. Who is man that he should act proudly and arrogantly, man born of woman, and in few days? At his birth there is weeping and travailing, in his youth pain and groans. All his days are full of trouble, and in the end he returns unto dust. Before such a one should I prostrate myself? I bend the knee before Yahuah alone. I bend the knee before Yahuah alone. I bend the knee before Yahuah alone, the only living one in heaven. He who is the fire consuming of all other fires, who holds the earth in his arms, who stretches out the heavens in his might, who darkens the sun when it pleases him and illuminates the darkness, who commanded the stand to set bounds unto the seas, who made the waters of the sea salt and caused its waves to spread an aroma as of wine, who chained the sea as with manacles and held it fast in the depths of the abyss that it might not overflow the land. It rages, yet it cannot pass its limits. With his word he created the firmament, which he stretched out like a cloud in the air. He cast it over the world like a dark vault, like a tent spread over the earth. In his strength he upholds all there is above and below. The sun, the moon, and the Pleiades run before him. The stars and the planets are not idle for a single moment. They rest not. They speed before him as his messengers, going to the right and to the left. Do the will of him who created them. To him praise is due. Before him we must prostrate ourselves. The court official spake and said, Yet we know well that thy ancestor Jacob prostrated himself before Haman's ancestor Esau. Whereunto Mordecai made reply, I am a descendant of Benjamin, who was not yet born when his father Jacob and his brothers cast themselves upon the earth before Esau. My ancestor never showed such honor to a mortal. Therefore was Benjamin's allotment of land in Palestine privileged to contain the temple, the spot whereon Israel and all the people of the earth prostrated themselves before Yahuah belonged to him who had never prostrated himself before mortal man. Therefore I will not bend my knee before this sinner Haman, nor cast myself to the earth before him. Whew, boy, I tell y'all, when y'all read the Old Testament, y'all get this fire shut up in your bones like Jeremiah did. There's a whole nother type of boldness that comes upon you when you read the words of the prophets. They singe every part of your spirit because their words come from the most holy alone. Ooh, boy, y'all better go read it. Therefore I will not bend my knee before this sinner Haman, nor cast myself to the earth before him. Haman at first tried to propitiate Mordecai by a show of modesty, as though he had not noticed the behavior of Mordecai. He approached him and saluted him with the words, "Peace be with thee, my lord." But Mordecai bluntly replied, "There is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked." The hatred of Mordecai cherished by Haman was due to more than the hereditary enmity between the descendants of Saul and Agag. Not even Mordecai's public refusal to pay homage due to Haman suffices to explain its virulence. Mordecai was aware of a certain incident in the past of Haman. If he had divulged it, the betrayal would have been most painful to the latter. This accounts for the intensity of his feeling. It once happened that a city in India rebelled against Ahasuerus. In great haste, troops were dispatched thither under the command of Mordecai and Haman. It was estimated that the campaign would require 3 years, and all the preparations were made accordingly. By the end of the first year, Haman had squandered the provisions laid in supply, the part of the army commanded by him, for the whole term of the campaign. Greatly embarrassed, he requested Mordecai to give him aid. Mordecai, however, refused him succor. They both had been granted the same amount of provisions for an equal number of men. Haman then offered to borrow from Mordecai and pay him interest. This, too, Mordecai refused to do, and for 2 reasons. If Mordecai had supplied Haman's men with provisions, his own would have to suffer. And as for interest, the law prohibits it, saying, "Unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon usury," right? And Jacob and Esau, the respective ancestors of Mordecai and Haman, had been brothers. When starvation stared them in the face, the troops commanded by Haman threatened him with death unless he gave them their rations. Haman again resorted to Mordecai and promised to pay him as much as 10% interest. The Hebrew general continued to refuse the offer, but he professed himself willing to help him out of his embarrassment on one condition, that Haman sell himself to Mordecai as his slave. Driven into a corner, he acquiesced, and the contract was written upon Mordecai's kneecap because there was no paper to be found in the camp. The bill of sale ran thus: I, Haman, the son of Hammedatha, of the family of Agag, was sent out by King Ahasuerus to make war upon an Indian city with an army of 60,000 soldiers furnished with the necessary provisions. Precisely the same commission was given by the king to Mordecai, the son of Shimei of the tribe of Benjamin, but I squandered the provisions entrusted to me by the king, so that I had no rations to give to my troops. I desired to borrow from Mordecai on interest, but having regard to the fact that Jacob and Esau were brothers, he refused to lend to me upon usury, and I was forced to sell myself as slave to him. If now I should at any time decline to serve him as a slave, or deny that I am his slave, or if my children and children's children unto the end of all time should refuse to do him service, if only a single day of the week, or if I should act inimically toward him on the account of this contract, as Esau did toward Jacob after selling him his birthright, in all these cases a beam of wood is to be plucked out of the house of the recalcitrant, and he is to be hanged upon it. I, I, Haman, the son of Hammedatha of the family of Agag, being under no restraint, do hereby consent with my own will, and bind myself to be slave in perpetuity unto Mordecai, in accordance with the contents of this document. Later, when Haman attained to high rank in the state, Mordecai, whenever he met him, was in the habit of stretching out his knee toward him so that he might see the bill of sale. So it looked like that this was tattooed upon Mordecai's kneecap. Hey, boy. I'm lifting up my leg for y'all that can't see. Y'all still can't see it. But listen, I'll put my knee up. Hey. Showing him his knee. Later, when Haman attained to high rank in the state, Mordecai, whenever he met him, was in the habit of stretching out his knee toward him so that he might see the bill of sale. This so enraged him against Mordecai and against the Hebrews that he resolved to extirpate the Hebrew people. And that, my beautiful people, is where we're going to pause at for today. Oh, had this been canonized with the other portion of Esther that was given to us, we could see a clear picture of what was going on here, but we kind of left to our own reasoning, right? Until we get the full picture. Like Proverbs said, and I forget which chapter it says, and I'm going to kind of sum it up here just that it said, one person who gives their testimony in court seems right until they're cross-examined by another, right? So you hear this first person, you hear their side of the story, but if you missing the other person who was present, everybody else who knows about this, we kind of miss what was really going on here, right? Because that one person, no matter how convincing they may seem, have left out some details. Most of the time they do. So that's why even in court cases, you bring out all the evidence. Let me get your vantage point. Let me get your vantage point. I'm gonna get your vantage point. If y'all have never seen that movie Vantage Point, y'all should probably go watch that. That's a good that's a good movie to show you one scene that happened from many different vantage points all around from where that incident took place, right? It's the same thing. One person seems right until they're cross-examined, or the person with the other part of the story comes and add that in. Oh, so you ain't tell us that, right? So now you made yourself look innocent when you really was the perpetrator of all of this, right? So we got to be calm till we get the missing pieces of the puzzle, right? And so we're bringing the missing pieces of the puzzle together. As we're bringing the missing pieces of the puzzle together, we have to adjust our thinking, right? And the improper teachings that we were taught, where they were getting us to focus on the wrong thing, right? Bring our attention back to the main focus of what Yahuah has said, and that's why we worship Yahuah alone. We bow our knee to Yahuah alone. I don't care what they said. Every knee will bow and confess that somebody else is Lord. No, we bow our knee to Yahuah and confess that He is the only God, right? Alone. Yahuah alone. Yahuah said, there was nobody with me there in the beginning. If there was, I know not one. There is no other Savior on this earth. If there is, I know not one. And if y'all missed all them scriptures, don't worry. I got most of them all ready for y'all. Post them in here today in the comment section. I'm going to pin it in the comment section of YouTube. So just in case you glossed over it, or people keep you from looking in that direction, I'm going to redirect your attention back to the main thing, right? We're going to bring our attention back to the main thing so you can read and see what Yahuah says. And now, when you hear the words from the Creator Himself, we have to make a decision, right? All right, beautiful people. So with that being said, I hope you enjoy the reading for today. Yes, wonderful husband. You have something to say? No? Nothing? You just come and listen? Or you wait for me to hear so I can fix you something to eat? That's what it is. Let me hurry up.
You want me to say what I really want to?
No.
Okay, then.
Because I'm sure there's a little bit too much information. Page 499. Okay. Lord, have mercy. Let me hurry up here, y'all. Okay. So, It is Thursday, April the 22nd, 2021, day 134 of year 3, reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 803. Today we read 2 Kings 9, 10, and 11, and we read Legends of the Jews, page 496 to page 499. Let's go ahead and read the blessing, which is found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. Remember, the first 21 verses is the Nazarite vow. He's like, hurry up, woman. He goes, so y'all probably know what he's talking about. At least if married couples, y'all know what he's talking about. Let me read this blessing. And Yahuah spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, on this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, may Yahuah bless us and keep us. May Yahuah make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. May Yahuah lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. And they shall put my name, whose name? Yahuah's name. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. All right, beautiful people. That is it for today. I love y'all. I see y'all tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:15 a.m. Peace.
Okay, that's all.